Chapter 1. The Foundation of Reality. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot cure. It is not the tiredness of a long workday or the physical ache of carrying heavy groceries up a flight of stairs. It is a deep, marrow-draining fatigue that comes from constantly having to defend your own sanity. When you share your life with someone who constantly manipulates, devalues, or attempts to dominate you, your mind becomes a battleground. You wake up every morning feeling as though you are trapped in a labyrinth of mirrors where every reflection is distorted, up is down, and the exit keeps shifting just out of reach. You spend your days trying to untangle a massive knotted rope of confusion, only to find that pulling one thread simply tightens a knot somewhere else. Before we can talk about healing, before we can talk about the future, we have to stop the room from spinning. We have to anchor your feet to the solid ground of reality. Think of a completely ordinary morning. You are standing in the kitchen, the comforting scent of cardamom and boiling milk rising from the stove as you prepare the morning tea. The ceiling fan is clicking rhythmically overhead, offering a small breeze against the humid air. The day has barely begun and your heart is relatively quiet. Then he walks into the room. The energy shifts instantly, turning thick and heavy. He is looking for a document, a bill, or a set of keys. He cannot find it. Within seconds, his frustration boils over and the target is you. He demands to know why you always move his things, why you cannot keep the house in order, why you are so remarkably careless. You know with absolute certainty that you have not touched his belongings. You calmly try to explain this. But the calmer you remain, the more his accusations twist and mutate. Suddenly, the argument is no longer about misplaced keys. It is about your character. It is about a mistake you made 3 years ago. It is about how selfish you are, how you never support him, how you deliberately try to sabotage his peace of mind. By the time the tea boils over and spills onto the burner with a hiss, you are apologizing. You are frantically searching the house for an item you never touched, wondering if perhaps you did move it in a moment of absent-mindedness. You are second-guessing your own memory, absorbing the blame just to make the hostility stop. This is not a failure of your memory, and it is not a flaw in your character. This is the architecture of confusion, a deliberate dynamic designed to destabilize you. Toxic and controlling individuals specialize in creating chaos because chaos provides a smokescreen for their behavior. If they can keep you perpetually off balance, questioning your own intelligence and memory, you will never have the clarity or the energy to hold them accountable. They construct a mirror world where everything is flipped backward. When they speak to you with cruelty and contempt, they call it constructive criticism or claim they are just trying to help you improve. Yet the moment you gently try to express a grievance or ask for basic respect, they explode, accusing you of being abusive, belittling, and demanding. It is a maddening experience to have your own entirely reasonable grievances turned into weapons and fired back at you. To step out of this mirror world, you must write a profound, non-negotiable law of human interaction upon your heart. It is the law of absolute responsibility. You must make a deep, unwavering decision inside yourself today. You are 100% responsible for your actions, and he is 100% responsible for his. You possess zero responsibility for the hurtful things he chooses to do, and he possesses zero responsibility for your reactions. The human mind naturally looks for cause and effect. When someone we love acts terribly, we inherently search for what we might have done to trigger it. We think that if we can just figure out the right combination of words, the perfect tone of voice, or the flawless way to manage the household, the cruelty will stop. But there is no magical combination. His behavior is entirely his choice. If he says you raised your voice, that does not grant him permission to shatter your peace, hurl insults, or intimidate you. There is no provocation that justifies devaluation. The assault on your reality often goes beyond flipped blame. It frequently involves the flat-out denial of events that you know took place. Imagine sitting in the back of an auto rickshaw or a cab after a long family wedding reception. The streetlights flash rhythmically across the interior of the vehicle, casting long shadows. At the party, he made a subtle but viciously humiliating joke at your expense in front of your relatives. It was a comment so sharp it took your breath away, yet masked perfectly as banter to the untrained ear. Now in the quiet of the ride home, you gather your courage to tell him how deeply that hurt you. He looks at you, his face a mask of total calm, and says, "I never said that. You are imagining things again. You are always trying to pick a fight out of nowhere. The sheer confidence in his voice is terrifying. He is so certain, so unwavering in his denial, that a cold dread settles in your stomach. You begin to wonder if you misheard him. You wonder if you really are too sensitive, if you really are hallucinating these slights. You are not hallucinating. You are experiencing crazy-making behavior, one of the most destructive forces a human being can inflict on a partner. This denial of obvious lived reality is a calculated tactic. Abusive individuals routinely deny their most harmful statements and actions because they feel entirely justified in lying to protect their sense of superiority and control. They know the truth, but they are relying on your inherent goodness, your willingness to self-reflect, and your desire for peace to override your own senses. When they deny reality with absolute authority, they are attempting to overwrite your mind with theirs. They want you to believe that you are the only one who perceives the world this way, making you feel entirely alone and increasingly dependent on their version of the truth. The journey to reclaiming your life begins with reclaiming your mind. You must consciously and fiercely trust your own memory. Trust your best thinking. Trust your gut instincts. When he tells you that a painful event never happened, or that you are the one who behaved terribly when you know you did not, imagine a heavy iron door slamming shut in your mind, blocking out his distortions. You do not need to argue with him. You do not need to prove your reality to him. Trying to force a manipulative person to admit the truth is a futile exercise that will only drain your spirit further. He twists every point to escape accountability, and engaging in that debate will only drag you back into the maze. Instead, hold the truth silently and powerfully within yourself. Your mind works beautifully. Your perception is sharp. You know what you saw, you know what you heard, and you know how it felt. No matter how many times a falsehood is repeated, repetition does not turn a lie into the truth. As you move forward through the days ahead, let this be your quiet, unshakable foundation. You are not crazy, you are not to blame for his cruelty, and your reality belongs entirely to you. Chapter 2. Surviving the Storm. There is a specific kind of dread that arrives the moment you open your eyes in the morning. It happens before your feet even touch the cool tile floor. You lie there, listening to the sounds of the house waking up, the distant hum of traffic, the call of a street vendor, the rustle of the ceiling fan, and you mentally brace yourself for the weather. Not the weather outside, but the emotional weather inside the walls of your home. Will today be a sunny, affectionate day where he smiles and offers a kind word? Or will a dark front have rolled in overnight, bringing with it a freezing silence or sudden thunderous accusations? When you live with an intensely controlling or devaluing partner, your nervous system becomes a full-time meteorologist, constantly scanning the horizon for danger. You step out of bed and head straight to the kitchen to begin the labor of the day. You are washing the dal, chopping onions, rolling out the dough for breakfast, packing tiffins for the children, and organizing the schedule in your head. The physical work is demanding, but the invisible emotional labor is what truly drains you. You are working harder and harder, moving faster and faster, trying to anticipate every possible desire and avoid every potential landmine. If the breakfast is perfectly hot, if the children are perfectly quiet, if the house is impeccably managed, perhaps you can buy a few hours of peace. But the brutal reality of an abusive dynamic is that no amount of flawless effort on your part will ever be enough. You are trying to fill a bucket that has no bottom. He walks into the room, and instead of a greeting, he offers a sharp critique of how the house looks or how much money you are spending. He might even remind you that he is the one who goes out and earns the living, dismissing your endless hours of managing the household as if they count for nothing. This is a profound distortion of value. When two people share a life, the work they contribute holds equal weight hour for hour, regardless of whether it generates a paycheck. The time you spend cooking, cleaning, negotiating with the vegetable seller, soothing the children, and keeping the fabric of the family from tearing apart is vital, life-sustaining work. If you were to calculate the sheer number of hours you pour into the household every week and compare it to his, you would see the glaring imbalance. Yet, his behavior is designed to make you feel as though you are a burden, a charity case who should be endlessly grateful for whatever crumbs of respect he chooses to throw your way. Sometimes the storm is not loud. Sometimes the punishment he inflicts is a suffocating, freezing silence. You might find yourself living in what feels like a ghostly void, where you share the same physical space, sleep in the same bed, eat at the same dining table, but you might as well be strangers passing in a crowded railway station. You try to make small talk, but you are met with a vacant stare or a single, sharp syllable. This silence usually begins after you have dared to stand up for yourself. Perhaps you refused an unreasonable demand, or perhaps you calmly stated that you would not be spoken to with disrespect. In a healthy relationship, a disagreement leads to conversation. In a controlling dynamic, your resistance is met with fierce retaliation, and the withdrawal of all warmth is one of the most effective weapons. He uses silence to starve you emotionally, to make you feel so isolated and desperate for connection that you will eventually apologize for something you did not do, just to make the Cold War end. When you are marooned in this kind of environment, you have to learn how to survive the storm without letting it drown you. Survival begins with a radical shift in your expectations. It is deeply natural to hope for a warm embrace or a loving word from your partner when the day begins. It is what you deserve. But looking for that nourishment from a source that is actively poisoning you is a setup for daily heartbreak. You must stop going to an empty well and expecting to draw water. If he wakes up wrapped in coldness or hostility, you must train your mind to say that his coldness is his problem, not yours, and that you will not allow his foul mood to dictate the quality of your day. You take back your power the moment you decide that he no longer holds the remote control to your emotional state. Instead of seeking validation from him, you turn toward the things that actually sustain you. You step outside and feel the morning sun on your face. You pour your energy into the bright, chaotic love of your children. You draw strength from a few quiet moments of prayer or meditation, taking deep, centering breaths before the rush of the day takes over. Surviving the day-to-day chaos requires building an invisible fortress around your spirit. You cannot control his unpredictable emotional swings, nor can you manage his anger for him. What you can manage is how much of your inner peace you are willing to sacrifice on his altar. Today, let the storm rage outside your fortress, but keep the fire burning brightly within. You are doing enough. You have always been doing enough. The time has come to stop working so tirelessly to secure his elusive approval and to start working to protect your own beautiful, resilient heart. Chapter 3. The Apology. Trap and the Illusion of Change. If the man you share your life with were cruel to you every single day, from the moment the sun rose until the moment it set, your path forward would be painfully clear. You would recognize the danger, and your mind would naturally direct all of its energy toward escape. But the most destructive relationships rarely look like a continuous nightmare. Instead, they are punctuated by moments of dazzling, blinding sunlight. It is precisely these moments of warmth, romance, and apparent remorse that create the strongest, most confusing chains around your spirit. The deep disorientation you feel is not an accident. It is the natural psychological result of living with a partner who swings wildly between punishing you and cherishing you. Imagine a Friday evening after a particularly agonizing week. For days he has been snapping at you, criticizing the way you speak, the way you look, and the way you manage the household finances. You feel small, depleted, and completely unloved. But on this particular evening, the front door opens and the energy is entirely different. He walks in holding a box of your favorite sweets, perhaps some fresh rasgullas or kalakand from that corner shop he knows you love. His eyes are soft, his posture is relaxed. He suggests you leave the cooking for tonight and take a drive, just the two of you, with the windows down to catch the evening breeze. Later, across a dimly lit table, he reaches out and takes your hand. He looks at you with a vulnerability that breaks your heart and says, "I know I have been so difficult lately. The pressure at the office has been suffocating, and I have been taking it out on you. You do not deserve it. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I promise I am going to change." In that moment, an immense wave of relief washes over you. You feel the heavy armor you have been wearing all week dissolve. You tell yourself that this is the real him, the man you originally fell in love with, and that the cruel man from Tuesday afternoon was just an aberration caused by stress. You desperately want to believe that he has finally achieved a breakthrough. But this beautiful evening is not a breakthrough, it is a mousetrap. To understand why this happens, you must understand a profound psychological principle about how human beings and all living creatures respond to rewards. Scientists once conducted an experiment where they placed mice in cages with a small lever. For the first group of mice, pressing the lever reliably produced a small, delicious morsel of food every single time. For the second group, pressing the lever produced the food entirely at random. Sometimes it yielded a reward, and sometimes it yielded absolutely nothing. The scientists discovered something fascinating. The mice who received the unpredictable, random rewards worked far harder and became far more obsessed with pressing the lever than the mice who were rewarded consistently. When your partner occasionally treats you with deep affection after periods of emotional starvation, he is applying this exact principle of unpredictable reinforcement to your heart. Those intermittent days of loving behavior keep you infinitely more hooked on him than you would be if he were just a consistently decent, predictable partner. You find yourself working harder and harder, enduring longer and longer stretches of misery, all for the desperate hope of triggering one more day of that magical warmth. You endure the storm because you are addicted to the temporary sunshine. Part of what makes this cycle so incredibly difficult to break is the sheer power of charm. Our culture has trained us to view charm as the ultimate measure of a person's worth. From the movies we watch to the songs we listen to, we are taught that a man who is smooth, intensely romantic, flattering, and socially captivating is a tremendous prize. But charm is not character. Charm is merely a skill, a highly polished surface. In reality, some of the most deeply destructive, manipulative individuals in the world possess an abundance of charm. They use it to disarm you, to win over your family, and to convince the outside world that they are wonderful. When evaluating a partner, charm should never be a shortcut to your trust. If anything, extreme charm should serve as a caution sign, requiring a mountain of consistent, respectful behavior before you allow yourself to feel safe. As the years go by, you may find yourself holding on to external milestones, believing they will miraculously cure his destructive nature. You might think that once he gets that big promotion, the stress will vanish and he will treat you well. You might convince yourself that if he simply stops drinking, the anger will disappear. You might even believe the tragic, beautiful lie that having a child together will force him to mature, settle down, and recognize your value. But abusive behavior is not caused by alcohol, by career stress, or by a lack of children. It is caused by an internal belief that he is entitled to dominate you and that your needs are entirely secondary to his. A baby will not cure his entitlement. It will only trap you further inside it. Take a quiet moment today to reflect on the history of his apologies. How many times has he looked you in the eye and promised that he would stop shouting, stop demeaning you, or stop lying? Count the number of times he swore that things would be different this time. Then ask yourself, what is the longest period that those promises ever actually lasted? A week? A month? If you look at the raw data of your own life, you will see a devastating truth. He may sound incredibly sincere when he makes these vows, but the 10th promise is worth exactly as much as the first. It requires immense bravery to stop hoping for the illusion. It hurts deeply to accept that the man sitting across from you, holding your hand and offering the perfect apology, is simply resetting the cycle. But you are a highly intelligent woman. Your life experiences have taught you to recognize patterns. It is time to honor your own wisdom, to stop investing your precious life force in empty promises, and to look at the reality of his actions instead of the beauty of his words. Chapter 4. Reclaiming Your Mind. Imagine sitting alone in your living room on a quiet afternoon. The intense desert heat outside is held at bay by the steady rhythmic hum of the cooler in the window. You have a rare, quiet moment to yourself, perhaps looking over a child's school report or calculating the month's household budget on a notepad. But as you look at the numbers or the words, a thick, paralyzing fog rolls into your brain. You second-guess your basic arithmetic. You doubt your own comprehension of a simple letter. A voice whispers in your ear that you are bound to mess this up, that you are simply not smart enough to handle these basic tasks, and that you are hopelessly incompetent. But pause for a moment and listen very closely to that voice. Whose voice is it, really? Over time, living with a partner who relentlessly devalues you, a terrifying psychological transition occurs. His cruel external voice seamlessly becomes your own internal monologue. You begin to do his destructive work for him, policing your own thoughts, doubting your own intellect, and punishing yourself before he even has the chance to enter the room. Let us trace exactly how this mental erosion happens. It does not happen overnight. It is a slow, methodical dripping of poison into the well of your self-esteem. Sometimes he employs overt cruelty, blatantly calling you stupid or ridiculous when you dare to express an opinion. But frequently, the tactic is far more insidious and much harder to defend against. It comes dressed as a sigh of heavy patience, a condescending smile, or a gentle, patronizing correction. He acts as though he is the brilliant worldly teacher and you are the perpetually failing student who needs constant guidance to survive. He might tell you that your thoughts are sloppy, that everyone else can clearly see how naive you are, and that your perspectives are not even worth taking seriously. He essentially pours a thick glue into the delicate workings of your mind, jamming the gears of your intellect so that you can no longer trust your own conclusions. When you try to articulate this confusion, or when you finally muster the courage to point out his unacceptable behavior, he deploys his ultimate weapon. He claims that you are losing your grip on reality. He will look at you, completely unbothered, and diagnose you as hysterical, overly emotional, or outright delusional. If you suspect him of hiding money or being unfaithful because of glaringly obvious clues, he does not just deny it. He tells you that your suspicions are undeniable proof of your own mental instability, but insanity is not about having a strong emotional reaction to being tormented. If you find yourself pacing the floors, weeping in sheer frustration, or screaming into the void, you are not crazy. You are having a profoundly normal human reaction to a terrifyingly unnatural situation. Your mind is actually functioning perfectly. It is simply overwhelmed by the deliberate, crazy-making chaos he is manufacturing. One of the most disorienting maneuvers he performs is looking you dead in the eye and calling you the controlling one. Think about the sheer absurdity of this accusation. You might simply be asking him to pick up his own clothes, to stop making humiliating jokes about you in front of the extended family, or to contribute fairly to the household responsibilities. In response, he erupts, accusing you of trying to dictate his life, calling you a dictator or a demanding burden. You must see this for what it is. A brilliant, manipulative reversal. Asking for basic human respect is not control. Setting a standard for how you will be spoken to is the exact opposite of control. He calls you controlling precisely because you are resisting his total domination over you. He is furious that you still have a spine, that you still possess a will of your own, and he is trying to shame you into dropping your boundaries. This relentless pressure cooker can lead to one of the most painful experiences a woman can face. Pushed to your absolute limit, exhausted and terrified, your own boundaries break. You might find yourself screaming, swearing, or hurling an insult back at him, perhaps even while the children are playing in the next room. Afterward, the shame is completely unbearable. You sit in the aftermath, trembling, and a horrifying thought washes over you, convincing you that you are becoming just like him, that you are no better than he is. He will eagerly seize upon this moment, thrilled that you have lost your temper, because it allows him to point the finger and declare that you are the truly abusive one. But you must steer a firm middle course here. While you must hold yourself to a high standard and strive never to sink to his level, you must also extend deep, profound grace to yourself. His prolonged emotional violence has caused you immense injury, and reacting to injury is not the same as initiating abuse. You are fighting to survive. Do not let his toxicity rewrite your character. You are a good person, and you are not him. To reclaim your mind, you must begin a daily, deliberate practice of eviction. You must physically and emotionally evict his voice from your head. When you drop a glass or make a minor mistake, and you hear that familiar internal voice calling you an idiot, stop immediately. Speak to yourself with the same fierce, protective tenderness you would use to comfort a frightened child. Replace his lie with your truth. If he has spent years telling you that you are incompetent, you must actively tell yourself that you are a highly capable, intelligent woman who manages complex realities every single day. You possess a brilliant, beautifully functioning mind. It carried you through the world long before you met him, and it is working furiously to protect you right now. Carve out small, fiercely guarded sanctuaries of time to let your own thoughts breathe. Whether it is taking a quiet walk as the evening cools, pouring your thoughts into a hidden journal, or simply locking the bathroom door to remember who you truly are. The glue he poured into your intellect will begin to dissolve. The fog will lift. and when the mirror world shatters, you will find your own true reflection staring back at you, older, wiser, and remarkably unbroken. Chapter 5. Breaking the Isolation. There is a subtle, creeping phenomenon that occurs when you spend years tethered to a destructive partner. Your world slowly begins to shrink. It does not happen all at once. It is not a sudden slamming of a door. Rather, it is like living in a grand, airy house where, one by one, the windows are quietly bricked up. The sunlight dims, the fresh air stops circulating, and eventually you find yourself sitting in a dark, enclosed room where the only source of light and sound is him. This narrowing of your universe is not an accidental byproduct of a difficult relationship. It is a highly calculated strategy. A woman who is deeply connected to her family, surrounded by loyal friends, and engaged in her community is a woman who possesses a mirror to the outside world. She has people who will remind her of her worth, who will notice when her light dims, and who will point out when she is being treated poorly. To a man who desires absolute control, that kind of support system is a massive threat. Imagine a typical Sunday afternoon spent at your parents' home. The house is alive with the familiar, comforting chaos of extended family. The air carries the rich, earthy scent of roasting cumin and frying puris. You are laughing with your cousins, sharing stories, and feeling deeply rooted in who you are. Naturally, there is the usual family friction. An aunt who asks slightly too intrusive questions about your finances, or a brother who gives unsolicited, arrogant advice about your career. It annoys you mildly, but it is simply the fabric of your family, woven with decades of unconditional love. You leave the gathering feeling rejuvenated, carrying a container of leftover sweets and a full heart. But on the drive back home, the atmosphere shifts. He does not yell. Instead, he speaks in a tone of deep, gentle concern. He zeroes in perfectly on the exact things that frustrated you. He remarks on how invasive your aunt was, how disrespectful your brother acted, and how exhausting it must be for you to constantly endure their judgments. He tells you that they do not truly want to see you happy, that they are secretly jealous of your life, and that you are always so much more peaceful when you are away from them. Because he has tapped into your own genuine minor frustrations, his words feel incredibly validating in the moment. You think he is protecting you. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you start to skip the Sunday lunches. You stop calling your sister as often. You tell yourself you are just setting healthy boundaries, but the tragic reality is that you are falling into a trap. He is not criticizing your family because they are toxic to you. He is criticizing them because they make you strong. He drives a wedge between you and your bloodline so that when he inevitably turns his cruelty upon you, there will be no one left for you to run to. This campaign of isolation extends far beyond your family tree. It aggressively targets your natural allies in the world, particularly other women. A controlling partner knows that female solidarity is a powerful force of healing and clarity, and he will work tirelessly to ensure you view other women as competitors rather than sisters. Picture yourself attending a large neighborhood wedding reception. You have spent hours preparing, wearing your most elegant clothes, hoping for a beautiful evening together. Yet, within minutes of arriving, he drifts away from you. You spend the evening watching from across the courtyard as he gives lavish, flirtatious attention to another woman. He leans in close, laughs at her jokes, and looks at her with the exact warmth he has been starving you of for months. A burning knot of humiliation and rage forms in your chest. When you confront him later in the quiet of your bedroom, he acts completely baffled. He calls you insecure and jealous, claiming he was just being polite. Or worse, he feeds your anger toward the other woman, implying that she was throwing herself at him and he was a helpless victim of her seduction. You find yourself burning with resentment toward this woman. You mentally tear apart her character and her appearance, but this is a brilliant misdirection. He wants you to direct your fury at her so that you do not hold him accountable for his own choices. A woman cannot flirt with him unless he actively chooses to engage. No one is a threat to your relationship except his own lack of integrity. By baiting you into jealousy, he successfully turns women into your enemies, making you feel that you must constantly guard him from female predators. He effectively destroys your ability to trust and lean on the very women who could offer you empathy and friendship. Furthermore, he appoints himself the supreme, unquestionable judge of human character in your life. He will examine your social circle and slowly poison your view of everyone in it. He will tell you that your oldest friend is secretly using you, that your new colleague is a bad influence, or that a neighbor is spreading vicious rumors about you. He speaks with such absolute booming certainty that his judgments begin to overwrite your own intuition. You start to view the world through his paranoid lens, questioning the motives of kind people and assuming everyone has a hidden malicious agenda. You surrender your right to decide who is trustworthy, handing that power entirely over to a man who is actively deceiving you. Eventually, the isolation shifts from something he imposes to something you enforce upon yourself. Living in a war zone of criticism, double standards, and emotional whiplash leaves you utterly exhausted. When a friend texts you to meet for evening tea, you look at the phone and feel a wave of dread. You do not have the energy to put on a brave face and pretend everything is fine, and you carry too much shame to confess how badly you are being treated. It feels infinitely easier to text back a polite excuse, turn off your phone, and crawl into a dark, quiet cocoon. While retreating can occasionally offer a momentary breath of peace, choosing prolonged isolation is the most dangerous path you can take. Inside that cocoon, the only voice echoing in the darkness is his. Without the grounding reality of outside perspectives, his lies about your worthlessness become the undeniable truth of your universe. You must take a sledgehammer to the bricked-up windows of your life. Your survival depends on reopening the channels of human connection. The world is not a barren wasteland of deceit. It is filled with vibrant, decent, wildly generous people who are eager to embrace you. Pick up your phone, send a message to the cousin you stopped speaking to, ask a coworker to join you for a walk. You do not need his permission to cultivate friendships, and you do not need him to verify who is safe. Your own judgment of human character is brilliant and highly capable, and it always has been. When you build a fierce, loyal cheerleading squad of friends and relatives, you disperse your reliance on him, you dilute his power, and the moment you allow the love of others to wash over you, his attempts to convince you that you are unlovable will finally, permanently lose their grip on your soul. Chapter 6. Navigating the Financial and Physical Realities. There are invisible chains that hold a woman in a destructive dynamic long after her heart has realized the truth of her situation. We often speak of the emotional toll, the manipulation, and the slow erosion of self-esteem, but we must also confront the cold, hard mechanics of control. When a man seeks absolute dominance over his partner's life, he does not rely on emotional warfare alone. He strategically targets her physical safety and her financial independence. He knows that a woman with her own money and a deep sense of physical security is a woman who can walk out the door. To keep you anchored in the storm, he must systematically dismantle your ability to survive without him. It is time to look at the tangible physical realities of your daily life with unflinching honesty. Consider a scenario that plays out behind the closed doors of countless homes. You have always been careful with money, carefully budgeting the monthly expenses to ensure the children's school fees are paid, the grocery pantry is stocked, and the electricity bill is cleared on time. Perhaps you even work outside the home, bringing in your own salary every month. Yet you constantly find yourself staring at an empty bank account, feeling a sickening knot of panic in your stomach. He insists on managing the major finances, demanding that your paycheck be deposited into a joint account that only he truly controls. When you ask him for cash to buy basic household necessities, he rolls his eyes, interrogates you about every single rupee you spend, and accuses you of bleeding him dry. He makes you beg for the very money you earned. Meanwhile, he spends impulsively on his own desires, takes out loans in your name, or funnels money into endless, secretive investments that never seem to yield a return. When the creditors call, or when the bank balance dips dangerously low, he turns the blame squarely onto you. He lectures you about your supposed financial incompetence, weaving a narrative that you are simply too irresponsible or too foolish to understand how the world works. He might tell you that without his financial genius, you and the children would be out on the street. This is not a dispute over budgeting styles. This is financial abuse. It is a deliberate, highly effective method of subjugation. By keeping you perpetually stressed about money, plunging you into debt, and hiding the true state of your household assets, he ensures that the sheer logistical terror of leaving him outweighs the emotional pain of staying. He wants you to believe that you are financially paralyzed without him. You must shatter this illusion by recognizing the profound economic value you bring to your household. If you add up the staggering number of hours you spend managing the home, nurturing the children, maintaining relationships with the extended family, and orchestrating the daily survival of the household, your labor is immense. Even if you do not earn a formal paycheck, your unpaid labor is the absolute backbone of the family's survival, and hour for hour, your work holds the exact same value as his. you have earned an equal right to financial security and transparency. Reclaiming your life means you must begin, quietly and steadily, to build your own financial lifeboat. You must start setting aside small amounts of cash in a secure, hidden place, open a private bank account he knows nothing about, and begin gathering copies of important financial documents. Beyond the financial cage, there is an even more primal reality that we must address, the reality of physical fear. Society goes to great lengths to condition women to ignore their own survival instincts. We are taught to be polite, to accommodate others, and to constantly question our own sense of danger. When you live with a partner who has explosive, unpredictable rages, your body starts trying to tell you something critical. Pay close attention to the physical sensations you experience when you hear his key turn in the lock or when his voice drops into that menacing, quiet register just before an outburst. Do your shoulders tense? Does your breathing become shallow? Do you feel an urgent, frantic need to smooth over the situation and pacify him? Imagine a terrifying evening when an argument spirals out of control. He does not strike you, but the violence in the room is suffocating. He screams inches from your face, punches a hole in the bedroom door, or throws a heavy glass against the wall, shattering it into 1,000 pieces near your feet. He blocks the doorway so you cannot leave the room. Your heart hammers against your ribs, and for a few agonizing minutes, you are genuinely terrified for your life. But the next morning, he wakes up calm. He goes to work, speaks to you softly, and acts as though nothing significant happened. In the calm light of day, you look at the broken glass or the damaged door, and you start to talk yourself out of your terror. You tell yourself that you are overreacting, that he was just venting his frustration, and that because he did not actually hit you, you have no real reason to be afraid. You must stop dismissing your fear. Fear is not a weakness. It is a profound, ancient gift designed to keep you alive. Your intuition is picking up on subtle cues of escalating danger that your conscious mind is desperately trying to deny. A relationship is meant to be a sanctuary, a place where you feel unconditionally physically and emotionally safe. If you find yourself negotiating with your own terror, telling yourself that he would never truly cross the line, you are living in a danger zone. A man who values you would be absolutely devastated, heartbroken, and horrified to learn that he had caused you to feel afraid. He would immediately seek help and radically alter his behavior to ensure you never felt that way again. If your partner uses intimidation to win arguments, block your exit, or force you into submission, he is doing it intentionally to establish dominance, and the danger you feel is completely real. The chilling reality of a destructive partner is that his moments of intense vulnerability or sweetness do not subtract a single drop from his dangerousness. It is entirely possible for a man to weep in your arms one evening and threaten your life the next. This duality does not mean you are misunderstanding him. It means his psychology is deeply fractured and unsafe. You must place your physical safety and the safety of your children at the absolute center of your decision-making. Trusting your fear is the first vital step toward protecting yourself. As you begin to map out the financial realities of independence, you must simultaneously map out your physical safety, recognizing that a life lived in the shadow of fear is not a life at all. You have the right to breathe freely, to sleep soundly, and to move through your own home without ever having to look over your shoulder. Chapter 7. Protecting the Innocent. There is a profound, quiet sacredness that settles over the house late at night when the children are finally asleep. You might find yourself standing in the doorway of their room, watching the steady rise and fall of their chests under the light cotton blankets, listening to the soft hum of the ceiling fan. In these quiet moments, an overwhelming wave of fierce, protective love washes over you, closely followed by a sharp pang of guilt and terror. You wonder how much of the household tension they are absorbing. You might tell yourself that because the most vicious arguments happen late at night or behind closed bedroom doors, the children are shielded from the storm. But we must be entirely honest here. Children have an incredibly powerful, deeply tuned radar for the emotional atmosphere of their home. They feel the thick tension in the air. They read the strained expressions on your face, and they hear far more from their beds than adults ever realize. Even if they never say a word, they are digesting the dynamics of the household, and it is actively shaping how they view themselves and the world. When you are raising children in the shadow of a destructive partner, your role as their mother takes on a monumental significance. Whether you gave birth to them or are raising them through other circumstances, being their mother means you are their primary moral compass, their protector, and their most vital source of refuge. Because your partner is so entirely consumed by his own selfishness, entitlement, or anger, he is utterly incapable of being the father they truly need. This reality makes your presence in their lives even more critical. Yet, an abusive man will frequently launch calculated attacks on your identity as a mother, precisely because he knows how much it matters to you. He might dictate rigid, absurd rules for the children and then berate you, claiming he is the only one who knows how to properly discipline them. He might even try to convince you that you are a toxic influence on your own kids, using that as an excuse to override your parenting decisions and strip away your rights. Worse still, he may observe the beautiful, tender closeness you share with your children, the way you laugh together on the veranda, or cuddle together while helping them with their homework, and react with bitter criticism. He might accuse you of spoiling them, of being overly involved, or of raising them to be weak. You must understand that this criticism has nothing to do with what is best for the children. He is acting out of profound jealousy, resentful that your attention is not entirely fixated on serving him, and threatened by the fact that your bond with your kids makes you emotionally stronger. Do not ever let his twisted perspective create a distance between you and your children. That fierce, joyous connection is a human triumph, and it is exactly what will carry them through the darkness. Because children are so intuitive, they often carry the weight of the household's trauma in absolute silence, burdened by secrets they feel they are not allowed to share. They might be too embarrassed to tell their friends at school, and too afraid of causing more trouble to tell you. This heavy silence often morphs into distressing behavior. Imagine you are in the kitchen and you hear your 10-year-old son speaking to his younger sister. Suddenly, the pitch of his voice drops, and he barks a command at her using the exact same dripping contempt and harsh vocabulary his father uses toward you. Your blood runs cold. It is a terrifying mirror. Your immediate instinct might be to panic, fearing that your sweet boy is already permanently corrupted. But bad behavior in children who witness mistreatment is very often a desperate, unconscious distress call. Children will sometimes mimic the cruelty they witness as a flawed attempt to make sense of the terrifying dynamics playing out around them. If you simply scold him or punish him, you miss the crucial opportunity for healing. Instead, you must pull him aside, sit down at his eye level, and firmly tell him that speaking to anyone with that level of disrespect is completely unacceptable. But you cannot stop there. You must open the unmentionable door. You must gently say, "I know you hear your father speak to me that way sometimes, but it is wrong when he does it, and it is wrong when you do it." Then you must ask him how his body feels and what happens in his heart when he sees you being treated that way. Even if he shrugs and pretends he does not care, which children often do to protect themselves, you have shattered the rule of secrecy. You have shown him that you see his pain, validating his reality in a way his father refuses to do. As they process this environment, your children are going to grapple with massive, frightening questions about anger. They may feel a burning rage inside them toward their father, and then immediately feel terrified that their intense anger makes them a bad person, or worse, that it means they are turning into him. You must explicitly teach them that anger is a completely healthy, normal human emotion, especially when they are witnessing injustice. They need to hear, repeatedly, that they always have the choice to express their anger without hurting anyone, and that their father's problem is not his anger, but his abusive, entitled attitude. Teach them to channel that fiery energy into running, drawing, writing, or simply crying, honoring their tears as a powerful, necessary release of stored-up pain. And in this high-pressure environment, there will inevitably be days when your own exhaustion catches up with you, and you lose your temper. You might find yourself screaming over a spilled cup of milk or slamming a door in pure frustration. When the silence settles, a crushing wave of shame hits you. You hear his voice in your head, calling you hysterical, and you tell yourself that you are a terrible mother who is irreparably damaging her children. Take a deep breath and cast that lie out of your mind. You are not an abuser. You are a deeply stressed human being operating under impossible conditions. You repair the moment not by pretending it did not happen, but by going to your children, apologizing sincerely for your tone, and reminding them that even when you are frustrated, your love for them is unshakable. Make it a steadfast rule to never go to bed holding on to unresolved anger with your kids, preventing today's frustrations from festering into tomorrow's resentments. Your partner knows how to win arguments through sheer volume and intimidation, but he does not control the soul of your family. You do. When he leaves the house for work, you have the profound ability to shift the entire culture of the home. You can counteract his rigid dictatorial strictness by fostering a microclimate of warmth, empathy, and fairness. If he imposes harsh, unreasonable punishments that you cannot safely override, you can still find quiet, stealthy ways to communicate to your children that you understand the rules are unfair, letting them know they are not crazy for feeling oppressed. When siblings fight, instead of swooping in as a harsh judge to declare a winner, you can sit them down, force them to listen to each other's perspectives, and guide them to find a fair compromise, teaching them the conflict resolution skills their father entirely lacks. Society will pressure you to focus on an endless list of superficial goals for your children: perfect marks on their exams, flawless manners, athletic victories, and impressive future careers. But the atmosphere of your home requires you to pare away the non-essentials. Your true goals are beautifully simple. You want your children to be happy, you want them to be kind and respectful, you want them to know how to fiercely stand up for themselves, and you want them to remain emotionally close to you. Everything else is secondary. Let them be children for as long as possible. Let them play, let them be messy, and let them be loud. They are looking directly to you to learn what love actually looks like. And by simply continuing to show up, offering them your patience, your respect, and your unwavering belief in their goodness, you are already giving them exactly what they need to survive and thrive.
Chapter 8. The Architecture of Healing. In the absolute depths of emotional darkness, when your spirit has been methodically torn to pieces by someone you trusted, it can feel as though the dawn will never arrive. You might look at the landscape of your life and see only wreckage, wondering how you could ever possibly rebuild a sense of joy or peace. When a partner has subjected you to a relentless cycle of cruelty and intermittent affection, the sheer exhaustion can make the idea of healing feel like a monumental, impossible task. But there is a profound truth that you must anchor yourself to right now. The human heart possesses a staggering, almost limitless capacity to bounce back from spiritual destruction. Somewhere deep inside of you, an untouched part of your soul is still fiercely fighting for a just, vibrant, and beautiful life. It is a common misconception that you must wait until you have completely escaped a toxic environment to begin your recovery. You might tell yourself that once the relationship is finally over, or once the living arrangements are resolved, then you will finally focus on your own well-being. But true emotional healing does not require a perfect, peaceful vacuum to begin. Your healing can and must start right now, this very moment, even if the mistreatment has not yet ended and you are still navigating the daily chaos. The first crucial brick in the architecture of your recovery is drawing a hard, bright line between who he is and who you are. Because you have lived in such close proximity to his toxicity, you may fear that his bitterness has infected you. You must firmly tell yourself that his issues are not your issues, and his destructive behaviors do not reflect anything broken within you. You are entirely separate people. You can reinforce this boundary every single day by consciously choosing to treat the people you encounter, the grocer, the rickshaw driver, your neighbors, your children, with the patience, decency, and respect that he entirely lacks. By acting out of kindness, you prove to yourself daily that his darkness has not consumed your light. To begin tending to your wounds, you must carve out microscopic sanctuaries of time for yourself. When you are managing a demanding, self-centered partner, your entire mental bandwidth is usually monopolized by his moods and needs. You must deliberately buck this trend by stealing just 5 quiet minutes a day exclusively for yourself. Imagine the late afternoon, when the oppressive heat is just beginning to break and the neighborhood is thick with the sounds of traffic and playing children. You excuse yourself, perhaps stepping out onto a small balcony or simply locking yourself in the bathroom if that is the only place you can guarantee absolute privacy. You sit down on the cool floor. You close your eyes and focus entirely on the physical sensation of your breath filling your lungs, feeling the steady, reassuring rhythm of your own heartbeat. You might light a small candle or a clay diya, gazing into the flame, allowing its gentle flicker to anchor your racing mind and promote a deep sense of calm. These 5 minutes might seem incredibly brief, but this daily ritual of checking in with your own body is a powerful, radical act of reclaiming your existence. As you reconnect with yourself in these quiet moments, you will inevitably encounter the massive reservoir of pain you have been holding back. Society aggressively discourages us from showing grief, demanding that women remain endlessly stoic, pleasant, and accommodating. But holding back that agony is physically and spiritually corrosive. We are biologically designed, down to our very genetic structure, to heal our trauma through the physical release of crying. There is no more effective natural painkiller on earth than a deep, no-holds-barred period of weeping. Tears quite literally wash our grief away, altering our brain chemistry and offering profound relief. You must find a safe place, perhaps in the shower where the sound of the water masks your voice, or in your room when the house is finally empty, and grant yourself the absolute permission to break down. Let the sobs shake your ribs. Let the sorrow pour out of you without judgment. Crying deeply is never a sign of weakness. It is a profound sign of strength and one of the greatest gifts you can give your wounded spirit. Closely shadowing that grief is an intense, burning rage. When you finally recognize the sheer injustice of how you have been treated, feeling infuriated is not just normal. It is a remarkably healthy reaction. Your anger is the irrefutable proof that your self-respect has survived the abuse. However, if left trapped inside your body, that rage will turn inward and eat you alive. You must find physical, constructive channels to move this fiery energy through and out of your system. You cannot take this anger back to him because he will only weaponize it and use it to hurt you further. Instead, you must literally move it out of your flesh. You might channel it into a vigorous, breathless walk through the neighborhood, a high-energy dance routine in your living room, or even by furiously pounding a stack of pillows until you are utterly exhausted. To process the chaotic swirl of these emotions, you need a confidant who requires absolutely nothing from you. You need a space where you do not have to filter your words or manage anyone else's reactions. This is why maintaining a hidden, private journal is one of the single most transformative tools for an abused woman. Writing is not merely a way to record what happened. It is an entirely different neurological process of thinking. When you take a pen and force your racing, tangled fears onto a blank page, you open new mental channels. You begin to discover solutions to problems that previously felt unsolvable. Your journal becomes your ultimate reality check, a safe harbor where you can write down the exact truth of his cruelties, so that when he inevitably tries to deny them later, you have the historical record clutched firmly in your hands. Ultimately, the deepest driving force behind all human healing is the experience of being genuinely cared for by others. For years, you may have looked to your partner to provide the cure for the very wounds he inflicted. You might have clung to the rare moments he acted as a gentle caretaker after a vicious argument, desperate for his comfort. But looking for healing love from the person actively destroying you is a devastating dead end. His love is far too conditional, too weaponized, and too intermittent to ever make you whole. You must bravely shift your gaze outward. You must open your battered heart to the safe, consistent love of the wider world. Healing is not a single, rigid prescription. For some women, the path involves sitting in a support circle, drawing immense power from the shared stories of other survivors who look at them with total understanding. For others, it is the grounding, physical discipline of yoga, or the quiet, restorative peace found in simply sitting under the shade of a large tree and listening to the wind. Whatever path you choose, you must commit to it fiercely. Absorb the warmth of your friends, the bright laughter of your children, and the small daily kindnesses of strangers. Let that clean, uncomplicated love wash over you, layer by layer, until the foundation of your spirit is strong, solid, and entirely your own. Chapter 9. Becoming your own protector. Think back to a time when someone you love was terribly unwell. Perhaps it was a child running a high fever in the middle of the night, or an aging parent who needed careful tending after a surgery. Remember the well of patience you drew from to comfort them. Remember the gentle way you spoke, the way you prepared their food exactly the way they could tolerate it, and the fierce, unyielding energy you summoned to protect them from further harm. You possess a profound, beautiful capacity for caretaking. Now imagine taking every single ounce of that devotion, turning it completely around, and pouring it directly into your own wounded spirit. This is the most radical, life-altering shift you can make when navigating a destructive dynamic. You must stop waiting for him to cherish you, and you must become your own fiercely protective mother, your own devoted nurse, and your own absolute best friend.
When you live with a partner who demands that the entire universe revolve around his moods, your own needs do not just take a back seat. They are thrown entirely out of the vehicle. You have likely spent years twisting your days around his unpredictable temper, rushing to ensure his shirts are perfectly ironed and his meals are served exactly on time, all to prevent an explosion. In the process, your physical and emotional needs have disappeared so completely that you may not even remember what they are. Reclaiming your life requires you to painstakingly reconstruct a relationship with your own well-being. This begins with the physical body. After years of existing in a state of high alert survival, you must actively teach your nervous system that you are worth looking after. You can start with small, deliberate rebellions of self-love. Instead of rushing to eat the leftover roti and cold sabzi while standing over the kitchen sink after everyone else has been fed, sit down at the table, serve yourself on the good plates. Cook a meal exclusively for yourself, seasoned exactly the way you like it. Lock the bathroom door, draw a bucket of hot water, and take the time to wash with a fragrant sandalwood soap, massaging the tension out of your own tired shoulders. You must cater to your physical self with the same reverence you would offer an honored guest. This practice of deep self-caretaking must extend into your emotional world. You need to develop a conscious habit of assessing what you actually require to thrive. Sit quietly with a notebook and begin to map out your needs across different horizons. Start with the immediate. Perhaps you need a brisk walk in the neighborhood park as the sun sets. Or perhaps you need to finally buy that new pair of sandals because your old ones are worn thin. Then stretch your vision further. Perhaps you need to quietly research a new job or set aside time to reconnect with an old passion like painting or sewing. The crucial commitment is to make your own needs the very first thing you consider when you wake up in the morning, before his demands even have a chance to crowd your mind. However, asserting your needs in a highly controlling environment comes with a distinct set of dangers. If you visibly stand up to a domineering partner, he will almost certainly exact a heavy price. He operates on the deeply entrenched belief that if you challenge his authority, he must punish you to force you back into submission. Because the toll of his shouting, his coldness, or his sudden rages can be incredibly destructive, you may have learned that openly standing your ground simply is not safe. Do not mistake this survival tactic for cowardice. When visible resistance becomes too costly, your resistance must become invisible, and invisible resistance is a profoundly powerful form of rebellion. Imagine a quiet afternoon when he is away at the office. You open the heavy wooden doors of the almirah in your bedroom. Deep in the back, folded inside a heavy silk sari you only wear for weddings, you slip a few hundred rupees into a hidden pocket. He knows nothing about this money. Or perhaps you spend an hour reading a book that empowers your mind, carefully deleting your digital history or hiding the book beneath a stack of old magazines before he returns. When he launches into a tirade, insulting your intelligence, you might outwardly nod to pacify his rage, but inside your own mind you are actively refusing to believe a single word he says. You are maintaining absolute clarity that he is wrong and you are right. These hidden acts, keeping your own secrets, securing private funds, holding tight to your inner truth, are not acts of deceit. They are strategic operations designed to keep your soul intact. Staking out your ground invisibly allows you to build your strength without triggering his immediate retaliation. This invisible boundary setting is the foundation of a much larger mission, the active construction of your total independence. A tragic mistake many women make is believing that they must wait until they are emotionally ready to leave the relationship before they start preparing for independence. But the time to build your lifeboat is right now while you are still on the ship. Knowing that you can rely entirely on yourself and that your survival does not hinge on his volatile moods will dramatically shift your internal power dynamic. Even if you ultimately decide to stay, cultivating economic and emotional self-sufficiency is vital. It transforms your presence in the relationship from a terrifying dependency into a conscious choice. You must take concrete steps toward this autonomy. If you do not have one, figure out how to open a private bank account. Investigate training programs or degrees that can elevate your earning potential, moving you steadily toward economic self-reliance. Simultaneously, you must build emotional independence by deeply investing in your outside relationships, ensuring that he is no longer the sole pillar holding up your emotional sky. When you possess your own money, your own loyal friends, and your own unshakable belief in your worth, his threats lose their terrifying edge.
You step out of the role of the helpless victim and rise as the fierce, strategic architect of your own destiny. You are the protector you have been waiting for, and your strength is more than enough to carry you through. Chapter 10. Stepping into the light. There comes a morning, completely indistinguishable from any other, when a profound and silent earthquake occurs within your spirit. You have endured the stress, the endless management of his volatile moods, and the suffocating tension for years, tolerating a reality that slowly drained the color from your world. And then, quite suddenly, an invisible threshold is crossed. You wake up, look at the familiar ceiling, and realize with sudden, breathtaking clarity that you simply cannot live this way for another minute. For years, the sheer magnitude of changing your life held you back. The risks were undeniable. The fear of financial instability, the dread of societal judgment, the anxiety of disrupting the children's routines, and the very real terror of how he might retaliate. You carried these heavy fears like stones in your pockets. But on this specific morning, a miraculous shift happens. The dangers of leaving are still entirely real, but they suddenly seem infinitely more tolerable than the crushing agony of staying. A courage that you thought had vanished long ago surges up from your core, filling your lungs with a new, resilient energy. You realize that you are ready to rise. As you contemplate taking this monumental step, you may find yourself waiting for a moment of pure, uncomplicated certainty. You might tell yourself that you will leave the moment you no longer feel any love for him, or the day you feel absolutely zero fear about the future. You must abandon this expectation. The day you feel perfectly, flawlessly ready will never arrive. The decision to end a significant relationship is always accompanied by a chaotic storm of conflicting emotions. You will feel a profound, aching grief for the beautiful future you originally hoped for, alongside a sharp, terrifying fear of the unknown, and bubbling just beneath the surface, a thrilling spark of excitement for your impending freedom. You cannot wait for the fear to completely evaporate. You must gather up your sadness, your terror, and your excitement, and you must walk forward anyway, guided by your deepest wisdom rather than the illusion of perfect readiness. To step fully into the light, you must travel back in time and rescue the girl you used to be. Think back to the years before you met him, when your mind swirled with imagination and unburdened hope. Picture yourself as a young woman, perhaps sitting on a rooftop terrace as the evening sky turned a brilliant bruised purple, watching the kites dive and swoop across the horizon. What did you dream of back then? Perhaps you envisioned running a bustling boutique, or pursuing a demanding academic degree, or simply cultivating a home filled with easy, uninhibited laughter and safety. When you became entangled with a highly controlling partner, those visions were buried under the exhausting daily labor of simply trying to survive his demands. It became too painful to even think about your future because your reality had drifted so far from your hopes. But those dreams did not perish. They have been quietly waiting for you in the dark. It is time to breathe life back into them, to actively rekindle the ambitions and passions that make you exactly who you are. As you begin to resurrect your own life, he will inevitably push back. He will accuse you of being selfish, of abandoning your duties, or of trying to ruin the family. He will attempt to punish you for every step you take toward independence. You must recognize his retaliation for what it truly is, the ultimate proof of his injustice. You possess an absolute, undeniable right to live a life free from domination, to make your own choices, and to protect your own peace. If asserting your basic human rights brings down a storm of anger and punishment, it only validates how desperately you need to escape his environment. The more he attempts to penalize you for standing up for yourself, the more you can be certain that your pursuit of freedom is vital, righteous, and completely necessary. He has likely spent years trying to convince you that this is simply how the world operates. He wants you to believe that all men are inherently domineering, that all relationships are battlegrounds of control, and that you will never find anything better than what he offers. He wants you to view the entire world through his cynical, aggressive lens, believing that a peaceful life is a childish fantasy. You must reject this deeply distorted narrative. The world is not a barren wasteland of hostility. Imagine walking through a bustling, vibrant evening market, the air thick with the scent of roasted spices and fresh marigolds. Amidst the chaos, you see an elderly couple navigating the crowd. The man is carrying the heavy cloth shopping bags, gently placing his hand on his wife's back to guide her, leaning in close to hear her speak over the noise. and looking at her with a quiet, enduring respect. They are not living a fairy tale. They have undoubtedly faced decades of hardship, but they are true partners. There are men in this world who cherish their partners, who consider them their absolute best friends, and who would be devastated at the thought of causing them fear or pain. There are homes defined by kindness, where arguments do not end in humiliation, and where love is demonstrated through consistent, reliable respect. Do not ever let his toxic patterns convince you that a beautiful, healthy relationship is impossible. Today marks the beginning of your personal new year. It does not matter what the calendar says. Today is the day the heavy, suffocating weight begins to lift from your shoulders. You are embarking on a journey back to yourself, moving step by step toward emotional wellness, centeredness, and ultimate freedom. The road ahead will require immense bravery, and there will be moments when you feel tired, but you are no longer walking in circles. You are moving forward. Open your fiercely resilient heart to the vast, brilliant possibilities of the life that stretches out before you. You have survived the storm. Now it is time to step into the warm, glorious light of the life you have always deserved.